Hello and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. Hi, I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today we're going to talk about fixing your mindset with the Planning PT. And I'm talking to Stephanie Telibasa, who is the Planning PT, and she is a seasoned physical therapy business owner and also a PT business coach. And as the owner of a thriving New York City practice that she runs remotely from Florida, Stephanie knows firsthand the power of systems for scaling and simplifying operations. And her 4-step SOAP method has been implemented in over 32 practices across 13 states and 8 specialties. And she's helping clinic owners achieve structure, efficiency, and freedom without sacrificing team autonomy. And today she's going to share with us about building systems in our practice and how to gain what she calls an evolved mindset in your practice. So Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Neil. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So let's dive into this. How did you end up running a New York-based PT practice from Florida? That's fascinating.
So it always surprises me when I'm telling someone that I have a practice in New York City and I live in Sarasota, Florida. Their reaction. I think I didn't realize how big of a deal it was until I started introducing myself and hearing these big reactions to it. For me, it wasn't much different than running the practice from Long Island. So when about a year or two after I opened the practice, I moved 30 minutes outside the city. And once I started growing my team and had a therapist there on the days that I wasn't there, I wasn't in the office any minute that it was open. So when I decided to look at moving out of state, it didn't really occur to me that it would be any different than what I was already doing on the days that I didn't commute into the city.
That's fantastic. What are some of the things that you learned, as an owner being, having a practice in another state?
Yeah, so I think running on that theme, the big lessons came when I started stepping back from treating and when I started testing out not coming into the office for a day or two. And then the things that you do without even thinking, like the first 2 years, I didn't have a cleaning company. I cleaned the bathrooms. Or I would come in on Saturday and do a deep cleaning and open up the AC vents and things like that. So slowly, around my second year, so 2019, I started testing out taking vacations for the first time. And I would leave for 4 days and then see what broke or see what questions came up. And then I went to Europe for the first time in my life. And I went for a nice 2 weeks. And that's when we really noticed, okay, we got to get somebody in here to clean the floors, clean the bathrooms, more than just wipe down the treatment tables. So really the lesson comes from as you slowly step back, what things do you realize you were doing? The mail is always a big one. Like the owner's the one collecting the mail and opening the checks and things like that.
Things,
And you don't think about it
right.
until if I'm going to be in Florida, does the mail come here? Where? So that's when I started to really think about, okay, what systems need to go into place if I'm going to open a second location? And that was really my goal, was to remove myself so I could open a second location. And somewhere throughout that time, this was 2020, things kind of pivoted. And luckily, we decided not to go forward with the second location somewhere around January, February of 2020. And then obviously things had to pivot and we started adding service models like telehealth and different things that we could do over that time. And once things stabilized again, that's when I decided, okay, we're not going to open a second location right now. This doesn't make sense. We've got the telehealth, we've got our in-office back. And what should I do now that I'm already removed myself? I'm not going to go back into the office and build up my caseload again. So I thought about hiring, and then that's when we started looking at moving to Florida.
That's fantastic. And so right now, how many therapists work at your clinic in New York?
Right now, we have 5 full-time therapists, and we have a 6th starting next month.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Good for you. And we were talking a little bit about before the podcast here on your model, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that you're you're out of network with insurances and also cash? Like how does that work?
Yes. So we're out of network. I would say about 60% is out of network where we courtesy bill. So we do accept assignment, we submit on behalf of the patient, we're not giving them super bills. And then the other portion are patients that don't have out of network coverage. So we're doing a traditional cash system for that. And we have, between our five therapists, we have 2 locations and the telehealth option as well.
Hmm. So that does that allow you to keep a higher reimbursement per visit because you know what your numbers that you want to achieve as far as like a
Exactly.
revenue per visit?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's where those systems come into play, and we're constantly, so we're tracking the revenue per visit, and that's where I'm monitoring, okay, does it still make sense to continue accepting this insurance? Because even out of network, the reimbursement has been going down, so we keep a really close eye on that. And as administrative burden goes up, because we have two people full time on the admin side,
Hmm.
one specifically for billing and operations, and one specifically for new patients. So, as some of these insurances, the reimbursements going down and authorizations are going up, we're constantly monitoring that and saying, okay, it makes sense to switch this over to a cash only now.
I absolutely love what you've done here. I think this is exactly, I've been preaching this for a while, which is you got to know your number. Like, what is the number you need to achieve, revenue per visit, and don't settle for anything less. And when you feel that effect of being the effect of the insurance company when you just take those lower and lower reimbursements and you're figuring out how you can operate at a lower reimbursement rather than thinking about, hey, how should I be treating, what should I be making here per visit, and firing that insurance company if they don't meet what you need to achieve. I think you've done an amazing job with that.
I appreciate that. And I also want to point out that there's always this conversation of, what are we doing about the reimbursement going down? And, what we're doing at my clinic is we're fighting every time we get a denial, because if you go through that appeals process, that is what actually lands with the insurance company, because they assume that you're just going to accept it and that you're just going to say, okay, it's not worth the fight. So, even with our limited admin, we get the PTs involved, we get the patients involved, we do the peer-to-peer reviews, and we're really only cutting out an insurance company when it's getting to the point where our numbers aren't making sense.
Yeah, the
If
totally like fighting for it, right? Like the store needs to be.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I remember we took United Health to the insurance state of the was it insurance commission of Florida a few times, and somehow they ended up paying us more per visit because we were the ones,
Because you
making sure they were
fought.
doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah,
So I think that's a big message to take away, is like, if you feel powerless and you feel like you're just getting these denials, like, keep fighting, because if we accept it across the board, it's only going to get worse.
yeah, absolutely.
And knowing the numbers, I think that's the only way to also set salaries, right? If
Hmm.
we don't know our numbers and we don't know these averages, how do we know what we can afford to pay someone? And I'm not just looking at what the neighboring clinic is paying, I'm looking at what we can afford. And if our reimbursement is going down and my salaries are based on that, that's when we're looking at that cutoff point too for an
Yeah.
insurance company.
Yeah, and I think too that's a positioning for attracting the best talent, right? Is that they want to, you don't want to find people that are just based on money. You want to find people that want to be part of something bigger, but money is part of the conversation. And if you can be extremely competitive because your pricing model is where it needs to be, you can be competitive in your salaries, right? And then you can attract the right people to come work for you. Love it. And so, how did obviously you've done some amazing things here. One is you're very system minded. Two is you're really looking at how can I not be the thing that makes this clinic run. I have to be there every second of the day. And we, you talk to practice owners and they feel like they're it, right? They make the clinic go and they have to be there. But you're proving that concept completely wrong because you can step out of the day to day and you can operate it from a distance. So
Yeah.
how did that lead you to starting the Planning PT?
So I think it takes a lot of trust in your team to assume that they're going to run things the way that you would. And I think that being having the mindset that I'm not the only one that can carry out this vision. I'm not the best at everything. Knowing that you're bringing people in who are more skilled than you and who maybe even be more organized than you, right? Like I was always the one who was last submitting my notes. Right? So I think that's the first part is trusting your team and finding people who are actually better than you are.
Mhm.
And then that freed up some of, like I said, I kind of stepped back. And then when we decided not to open the second location, during that time, I was also scrambling to figure out, okay, what do we do? We're in New York City. We're working with a population of young, active fitness professionals. Like, there is not really a justification for me to treat these people in person under these restrictions. So, and most of them left the city anyway.
Mhm.
So during that time, I was going to all of my mentors. I went to every business coach I could find. I reached out to every because I was 2 years into business at this point and very new.
Mhm.
And a lot of the answers that I was getting were, well, you only have 2 employees, just let them go and you could rebuild. And at the same time, I was getting all of these, panic messages from my friends from PT school, my former colleagues who were being laid off or being asked to come back to work with all of these, extra terms. So I really saw this like point of I am not going to let my team go because if I can keep them, they'll be able to pivot and figure out this virtual model with me. They'll be able to rebuild faster. And then at the same time, I was sharing everything I did to open my practice with friends because they wanted to see, okay, how can I just see a couple visits on my own to make something while I'm in this, financial pinch. So I think my first 2 coaching clients, I charged $100 each and I gave them absolutely everything that I used in my first 2 years of business. So that's where the coaching came from. And then I realized, okay, there's a demand for this as more friends started to reach out. And then it became friends of friends. And, now I've worked with someone in Alaska and someone in Minnesota and people, places that I've never been to.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I do think there's such a rise in the industry and the need for um, this more, working with different populations, right? Working more sports or younger adults and being able to have this non-traditional insurance-based model, right? And I think there's such a demand for that now. People are looking like, how can I grow my practice? How can I change my practice? How can I bring these kind of things into my practice? Maybe keep a traditional style, but also bring something else that's a bit more of a hybrid approach into it. And but they're trying like it's hard to figure out things on your own. Like that takes a lot of research, a lot of time, and just like you were saying, you got to find people who know what they're doing, right? Or have been there, have had that experience. Well, how can you learn from them, right? Or how can you incorporate what they are doing? And so you developed this 4-step SOAP method, and I was just wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit more about that.
So you're a PT, so you know what SOAP stands
Sure
for.
do.
So I took the most basic framework I could think of and applied it to business. So if we're in an evaluation and you tell me your shoulder hurts, I'm going to write out a SOAP note. So I'm going to do the same thing for your practice. Subjective, tell me in plain language what's hurting, what's the problem in the business. Objective, do we have numbers? Do we have data? Okay, what is our data telling us? That's our assessment. Now we're going to make sense of this and put it all together. And then we're going to come up with a plan. And that plan could be a 30-day plan, it could be a 3-month plan, or it could be a 5-year plan. But I put it in this simple framework to take the fear out of, oh, I'm a PT, I don't know business. Well, yes, you do. It's the same thing. We're looking, instead of looking at scour and your range of motion, we're looking at your P&L and we're looking at your average reimbursement per visit and things like that.
Yeah, makes total sense. It makes it easy to remember too, right? When you're so in it day in, day out with your SOAP notes, to
Yeah.
apply that same principle to business. So I love that. And so how has that helped your coaching clients? As you've, do you have some examples of like how you've implemented that with them?
Yeah, I think it brings a lot of clarity because the common complaints are, my schedule's not busy enough. Okay, well, let's go to the objective because in the objective, the schedule not being busy could mean that we don't have enough new patient inquiries. Or it could mean we have a ton of new patient inquiries, but you're not so good at converting them on the phone. Or it could mean that you've got a lot of people coming in, but for some reason they're not booking out. So now we have a retention problem. Or it could mean your financials aren't in order and you're not collecting on every visit, right? How many people are saying, I'll get you next time? Or how many insurance denials are we not following up on? So now that we know the process, when we get to that objective section, I'm keeping it really clean, again, with the 4 different things that we could focus on. And it brings a lot of clarity. So when someone's in this panic state of, I don't know what to do, my schedule's not full, I'm not making enough money, we could break it down and say, okay, well, which one of these 4 things do we want to focus on first?
Mm-hmm.
You're keeping everybody for 12 visits. I'm not touching that. Let's go up front. Let's see what's happening on your phone calls. Let's see what's happening in your marketing.
Got it. So, and as far as like major systems in a practice, you were just talking about obviously new patient, making sure that with the schedule's full. What other key kind of systems or areas do you like to really evaluate on a client?
Yeah. Those are the 4 major ones. And I'm not married to one method of marketing or networking. I'm more of, okay, what have we been doing? Is it getting the results that we want? So for me, I know we need 20 new patients and new patient inquiries per therapist. So I know right off the bat, if we're not getting 20, we're not going to get a full schedule because of our convert. So I'm going into that. So what are we doing to track our leads? Most people that I talk to aren't even really writing them down.
Mm-hmm.
So like sometimes it's something as simple as that. I'm not necessarily a specific software person. Like I'm still a PT. I'm not into tech, but I want to know how many new new patient inquiries are we getting in September versus August? Are we going up? Are we going down? Are we getting more quality referrals because maybe we got more volume because we opened up Google ads or Facebook ads, but did those people convert? Were they in our demographic? And so I'm assessing those things. And I'm not necessarily teaching you this is the CRM you need to use and this is the language you need to use to convert. I'm trying to find the problem and then figure out, okay, how can we trim some things out that aren't working and redirect to try something new?
The top 10% of PT owners aren't just surviving, they're thriving. But what's their secret? Well, Neil Trickett's new Market to Grow book reveals how the top 10% of PT practices leverage marketing systems to simultaneously grow their new patients, attract top talent, and boost profit in their practice. You can learn from their secrets. Visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free copy of Market to Grow. Yes, you heard that right. We are shipping a free copy of Market to Grow to all podcast listeners who want it. Just visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free book. And now back to the show.
And I love what you said there. Obviously, knowing the number that you need to achieve, and I think that what I've seen is that practice owners, they know certain metrics that they have to achieve, but then if they're looking at why is my schedule not full, they don't necessarily have the numbers working backwards. So if like, okay, if I need to get this many patient visits, how many new patients do I need to get on the books to get those patient visits? And then of those new patient evaluations, how many leads how good is my front desk or whoever's taking the calls at converting those leads to new patients? Maybe it's 60%. Well, okay, well then how many leads do I need to get to convert at 60% to get those new patients? And okay, then how many, other types of lead inquiries and forms and, ads or whatever you need to do to get that. And that's, I think the working backwards step is so critical, because once you know those numbers, if you're not hitting them that month, like just what you're saying, like, okay, Is this a conversion problem at the front desk? Is this a a marketing issue where I'm just not getting enough flow out? I'm not getting enough inquiries in, or like you said, the retention part, like they're coming in for 1 or 2 visits and then they're just dropping off. So I need to do something a little bit differently or handle that. Um,
I'm
so
happy that you got the connection right away. It sounds like we're on the same page with a lot of things, but I'm constantly hearing, when I talk to an owner who's, looking for coaching, I'm constantly hearing, I think I need to do more marketing. Like, okay, well, we could just continue to put more leads into the top of the funnel, but if we don't look at these other things, we're going to spend more money and more energy and it still might not get you where you want to go. So I'm also looking at the efficiency
yeah.
because if it's a conversion problem, then I'm talking to my admin who's answering the phones. If it's a retention problem, I'm talking to my PTs who are doing the evaluation and booking the plan of care. If it's a revenue problem, I'm talking to the biller. So it also helps me as the owner. Now we're about to have a team of 9. If I don't know exactly which of the four pieces are causing the issue, then how do I know who I'm having a meeting with? How
hmm
do I know who I'm sitting down to work through this with?
Yeah, you gotta know the numbers there. And we have conversations with clients that they're getting tons of leads. Like we're helping them generate a tons of leads, but then they're like, hey, we're not that busy. We're not something like, that something's wrong with the marketing. But then when you start to look, you actually can track like calls and everything with our systems.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of like non-answered calls, and you're like, well, I think there's maybe you need to listen to some of the recordings or what's going on with the front desk. Maybe they're too busy. Maybe they're, so busy that they're missing out on some calls and people are just going to go somewhere else. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but if you have the information, if you have the data, you can make better informed decisions of where to put your efforts, right? To make things better.
absolutely.
And so would you,
You have a hard seat because you're doing all of the upfront, but you don't necessarily see the back end.
yeah, so we try really hard because we have our patient lead CRM, and that basically is what the front desk can actually use to. So we can track someone from like a Google ad all the way through a phone call in your website. It comes into your CRM, and then when the front desk marks that person is actually scheduled, then we've got all the data, right? We know like, hey, this ad worked really well. They got us a phone call on the website, and then they actually became a patient in. So when you can have all that kind of data, you can make a lot of great decisions. When you don't have those kind of systems in place in a business, it's hard to know like where to put like what's going on. Why are we not busy, right?
Right.
So you're trying to figure out all these different areas. So systems and tracking and data, it just helps you make much better informed decisions. And I'm curious on your end, removing yourself from the day to day in the clinic and being able to, do you look at a lot of the metrics more from being remote? Just kind of curious how that works for you.
Yeah. I still focus on those 4 pieces and I try to stay out of, unless I need to talk to someone in the office and I want to look and see when they're available, I try to stay out of the schedule as much as possible. So I think when you're too close to it and you're staring at, oh, there's only 2 appointments today and there's a big empty gap, um, I honestly don't care as long as when I zoom out for the month, we see the things that we need to see. um, I try to stay as, 1,000-foot view as possible because if you go into the day to day and you start looking at, oh, 3 people canceled in one day, I wonder what's going on. I need to reach out and see if they were rescheduled. Then you get into this anxious micromanaging role. And I like to keep it, I trust my team. I know that they care about their patients. They're going to follow up. So I don't need to know what's happening on a micro level.
Love that.
And
Yeah. I was just on with a friend of mine, Jamie Schreier. You might probably heard of him, but
Mhm.
he was talking about the same thing. Like one of the key things as a practice owner is letting go, right? And so
Yes.
letting your team be successful. They're going to make mistakes. Like you said, if you can, I totally get that feeling of what you were talking about. Like um, if you are looking at things every single day on every single little thing, you get in the way,
It'll
right?
make you crazy. Yes, you get in the way and it'll drive you nuts. Um, I agree with you. Like giving people the freedom and the permission to make mistakes. That's been the biggest thing for me as in this role as a leader and not being side by side. Like the first three people I hired, I was next to. So, learning to interact with people and build relationships when I'm talking to them over Zoom for an hour or, over messages has kind of shifted. I've realized that a lot of what I need to do is allow people to make mistakes, and that will empower them to make their own decisions. So, a lot of my team, even my admin side, have come from bigger corporate settings. So, they're used to very strict policies, very strict rules. We need to check in with a code at exactly 5 minutes before our shift starts and clock out for lunch. I'm like, we just don't do that. If there's empty space, my therapist is going for a run in the middle of the day. And, I don't necessarily care. As long as the work is done and the patients are happy, it doesn't really matter to me if you're in the office from this time to that time.
Yeah, that's interesting too because it is a shift. I mean, I come from the days of practicing. Like my wife worked for Health South and at times saw 6 patients an hour. You hear the horror stories, right? And so we come from that world of, and some of us who's been in practice for a long time, like that's kind of our operating, like, hey, we've got to see this volume of patient visits in a day. And again, that comes from, we don't know our like ideal number that we want to get to revenue wise per visit and what are the different ways that we can get there. But we're kind of, we're looking at because the revenue per visit is smaller, the volume has to go up. And then we wonder why we have burnout with therapists and all these kind of things. And so
Right.
I think it's time we're in this evolution where we're having to look, because of the market, we're having to look at different ways that we can deliver care in the practice without burning ourselves out, the patient or the clinic.
Right. Allowing our therapist to have time to think and go through red flags and stay curious about, did I make the right call here? How did they respond to that? And you can't do that if you're being micromanaged or if every second of every day is full.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so key because you can being like, if I had to go back into patient care again and I was expected to see like 15 to 17 patients a day, like that would be so draining, right? I don't think I could even face that again. Like I like the model where you have enough time with the patient. And I think if you're going to command a higher price point for patients, they have a certain expectation. You're going to put, a lot of manual therapy on me. You're going to guide me on different exercises that I'm going to do and, whatever other solutions that you're providing within the clinic. Like they expect a higher level of service for that price point, right? And that just means you have to have enough time with the patient to deliver that.
Since you brought up price per visit, I want to point out a really good lesson when I was in my first year. So, thinking 2018, I was charging, I think, $150 a visit, and I was doing 45-minute sessions. And I got to the point where I was at max capacity. I was not thinking about hiring. And when the phone was ringing, I was hoping that the person would say no to the 150, right? So I just, out of sheer exhaustion, threw out a random price and said, the only thing that I have available, it's $300 for the visit, and the only thing I have available is 8 a.m. on Sunday. And I was like, I just wanted to give them something to say no to. Well, they said yes. And the difference to someone who's committing to that higher price point is not necessarily, because we still stayed in the 45-minute period, but they sent me every single report ahead of time. A printout of all their doctor's visits, a thorough email there. I've never seen intake forms with so much information on it. And then afterwards, the follow-up was also much more detailed, and they wanted to send me videos of them doing the things at home. So something to think about with the pricing, it's not always 1 hour of your time. It has a lot to do with the access to you between sessions. And I think that's another big shift that we're seeing is this hybrid model using whether it's asynchronous or synchronous telehealth, remote therapeutic monitoring, but having some of these touch points between visits rather than just selling 1 hour of your time. I see a lot of people trying to market, we're one-on-one for 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't mean anything if what people are used to seeing is a traditional clinic, and they might have been there for 60 minutes. They might have just gone out into the gym and done something by themselves. So they don't necessarily know the difference. It's the quality and it's the contact in between.
Right. Totally agree with that. And if you, I mean, we just got to look at too the expansion in healthcare of the concierge model, right? And so if you look at physicians, the concierge model, much less volume of, like, what was it, 3,000 patients, I think, like a normal physician would carry, maybe a primary care or something like that. And then a concierge is usually around 600 to 700 patients. So, like less than a third of what they would be in a very busy, but they have the time, right? But they don't market the time, but they do market the accessibility to
Yes.
your physician, right? And that's what people pay for. So I love what you're saying there about that it is a very different mindset, the type of patient, what they expect, what they want, how their commitment level obviously is higher, which is fantastic. We love to work with those kind of patients. So I have you, as you're working with different clinicians around the country, is this the model that they are trying to incorporate into their practice, like what you have within your facilities?
Yes, I would say my non-negotiable is that the practice has to be one-on-one. So I do have a handful of clinicians who've decided to go in network because of the area. Like I have someone in Virginia who's very close to the Army base. So like we're in network with TRICARE. That just
Okay.
makes sense. So it's not that I'm only working with people who are out of network or cash only. It's more the one-on-one model and thinking about this. The concierge is more than just I'm giving you my undivided attention when you're in the room with me. The concierge is I'm thinking about who else do you need on your team? How can I connect you with these other healthcare providers? You have access to me in between sessions. When you're at the gym and you feel something, you can email me or you can go through our RTM app, right? There's some sort of connection in between.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the similarity across the board because they are in all different specialties. Some are pediatric therapists, some are, sports ortho like me. I have a lot of pelvic health clients more recently.
Hmm. That's really fascinating, and I have seen a few clinics out there. I wonder if you've seen this too, where they kind of have gone for that concierge model where they do bill insurance, but there might be some sort of access fee or like membership fee, kind of like a concierge physician. They still bill like Medicare or anything like that, but there's a $2,000 a year membership fee or something like that for the physician. And I've seen a few clinics. Have you seen that also as you chatted with folks?
The PT side, I haven't seen it for an active plan of care. I've seen it for the wellness side. So I have a run coach who does that. So you pay a monthly membership and then you're getting tweaks to your run programming or you're getting this asynchronous feedback of, here's a video of me running on the treadmill. Can you give me some critique? And I've also seen it in more strength training and kind of the higher level programming. So more of a wellness option where they're paying for month to month access and it's asynchronous feedback using something like a True Coach app or something where you can upload videos from the gym. I'm interested to see how it would work in a PT model because we're so custom with, all right, for this, with the way you're presenting, I need to see you twice this week, or, you're progressing faster than expected. We could drop to bi-weekly. So I wonder how it would work and if there would be any traffic jams as far as how many people are requesting an in-person appointment each month.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But
don't know. I mean, it's again, it's something very new, unique, and as people trying different things out there. Um, I'm curious on your running program. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you run that?
yeah, so I don't have that in my practice. It's one of the practices that I consult.
Hmm.
So they have that as a wellness option.
And then how do they run it, the program itself, and with like, is that just cash
So
based?
it's cash based and they
Mhm.
pay a monthly fee and then they get their program and the patient is going to the gym or going out and doing their run and then giving feedback. So they're saying what they felt throughout the run or what they actually completed versus what's programmed. And then the therapist, who's a run coach, is going in there and modifying their next workouts. But it's a nice option for getting out of this trading 1 hour of time for X amount of money, because you could give feedback while you're sitting on the couch after dinner at night and quickly run through all 5 of your clients and watch that feedback. And it doesn't matter as long as they get it before their next workout.
Of that. I think, yeah, there's just so many great ideas out there. And I mean, there's such big running clubs out there. You know,
Yes.
there's so many runners. Like that's like if you're not running a running program in your clinic, like that's a great opportunity. Um, Not just from
Especially
an
for
injury perspective, but just from improvement and enhancement perspective.
yes. Yeah, there's
And where I live in Virginia, I mean, there's so much with high school sports, right? And like we even send our kids to sports performance coaches and things like that to help them be better at the games. And there's so much of that capabilities out there. The question is, are you incorporating or thinking about adding those services lines within your business?
thinking outside the box. I think another one to mention, I work with a performing arts specialist, and they will go and do injury prevention workshops that are paid by the different dance studios or by the different dance schools. And then they have a baseline, so kind of like a physical at the start of the semester. They have a baseline, and now when that dancer has an injury, they know what their baseline was and they know exactly what they're getting back to. So that's another just way to think about it. When you brought up the sports performance,
Mhm.
it's like doing a physical at the beginning of the season, and then if that player gets injured, the therapist knows exactly where they started.
Love it. Yeah, I actually used to work with the Boca Ballet. Some of the dancers. That was always fun.
That's
Get
super
to see
fun.
some of the shows too, which was great. So can you tell me a little bit about in your approach, in your planning PT approach, the evolved mindset? I'm curious to know what that means.
Yes. So I picked up this term, the evolving mindset, from an article that I found on LinkedIn. And as I was reading it, I just kept thinking, those are the type of people that I want to be around. And that's why I kind of brought that into our program. And, when you start to work with me, this is the first thing you're introduced to. So the evolving mindset is someone who is always learning. You could probably say that about most PTs, right? There's this deep curiosity. So we're questioning the norm. We're not just accepting that, I would say when I went to PT school, it was ultrasound that we were questioning. And now my newer therapists are questioning manual. There's right where we're curious. We're never saying this is 100% the diagnosis. This is 100% the only way of doing things. If you and I disagree on something, I'm going to approach it as like, oh, well, what's the feedback you're getting? Why does that work differently than what I've experienced? Right. So always learning, deep curiosity, not afraid to fail.
Mhm.
So we're okay with testing something, and kind of goes back to the like teaching your team that it's okay to make a mistake. What happens when you fail? What's our plan? Okay, let's talk through it. And we know we're going to have some fails. We're going to implement things that don't work out. As long as you're okay with that, and knowing that for this business to succeed, we have to get through those. It can't always be perfect.
Right.
And then the last point is, when you do succeed, being humble to that and giving the people who helped you credit and being grateful to all of your supporters. So that together is really the abundance mindset,
Mhm.
and going through a cycle of learning, right? So you fail, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to be curious about what made us fail. We're going to collect feedback. We're not going to be, against criticism. And when we do succeed, you're going to be humble. You're going to attribute it to all the people that you learned from. And then you're going to go back and you're going to teach someone else, because that's how the cycle is going to keep going.
That's awesome. All right, so we've got the evolving mindset there. We get the SOAP method, right? The four-step SOAP method there.
Yeah, as you can tell, I also love marketing. So
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. And so I think, and you're on the west coast of Florida, right? I think there's something about the west coast of Florida, because I also have two other friends that are in that particular area, and they run clinics remotely. One of them actually has like a large home health and some outpatient clinics in New York City, more like Brooklyn and Queens, that kind of area. And then another is actually running their clinic in Virginia remotely from Florida.
well,
Um,
you'll have to introduce me, because
I'll have to
it's
introduce you. Yeah,
pretty
for sure.
rare.
So there must be something about that West. Everybody kind of who has that mindset goes to the
It's
West
a
Coast of
magnet over
Florida
here.
because that is a beautiful area of the country there. But I think again, what you've done is amazing. Kudos to you for kind of really being innovative in this area, and I think showing our audience, showing the profession that if you want to be a business owner, if you want to run a fantastic physical therapy clinic, you can do it, and it doesn't have to be all about you. You can actually get what we all want, right? We want the freedom to the business to generate for us, right? And making it happen that way. Lots of kudos to you for making that happen. So Stephanie, what's a great way for someone who's interested in talking to you, learning more about your planning PT coaching? What's a great way for them to learn more about you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, so my handle is the Planning PT, and I also I'm open to having a conversation. So there's a contact form on my website. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch. And yeah, this part of things, I absolutely love the puzzle of it. And I think when I was treating, I loved the puzzle of trying to figure out what's going on with this person and if they have knee pain, looking at the hip and the ankle. And, now I really love doing that for the business side of things.
Fantastic. Yeah. So for our audience out there, definitely check out Stephanie at theplanningpt.com. Also check her out on Instagram at the planning PT on the Instagram there, and connect with Stephanie to learn more about how she can help you run your practice the way that she's running hers. And so thank you, Stephanie, for being on with us. Any last thoughts or ideas before we wrap up here?
I think a good way to summarize this conversation is to stay curious.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. Stay curious out there for sure. For all our audience, don't forget to subscribe to our practice marketing podcast. We like to put new episodes out all the time, so you can get access to that, as well as our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe on there. We'll put these podcasts up on there, as well as other free tips and advice that we have from our market to growth strategy. And then don't forget to go to practicepromotions.net, where you can get tons of free downloads on how to market your practice more effectively. So this is Neil Trickett from the Practice Marketing Podcast, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to ratings and review on your phone and click write a review. Thanks.